Your dog looks perfectly calm as you grab your keys. They're just sitting there, maybe wagging their tail a bit. But inside, their cortisol levels are already spiking 3 times higher than baseline. Every single departure you make is actually a crisis moment in their mind, and the way most people leave is probably making it worse. Number 1. The countdown you never noticed. Now, most experienced dog parents think they're being subtle when they prepare to leave, but researchers at the University of Lincoln discovered something disturbing. Dogs start their anxiety response up to 20 minutes before anyone actually walks out the door. Your morning routine creates what animal behaviorists call an auditory countdown. The coffee maker finishing its cycle, the way footsteps change when wearing shoes versus slippers. A study in applied animal behavior science found that dogs can distinguish between 17 different pre-departure sounds in the average household. Yes, 17. And the keys create the biggest problem. When researchers measured salivary cortisol in dogs, they found that the sound of keys alone caused a 68% spike in stress markers. And the dogs hadn't even been left alone yet. Some owners accidentally train their dogs to panic through what seems like kindness. That last-minute belly rub or quick game of fetch before heading out floods the dog's system with arousal chemicals right before abandonment. Dr. Patricia McConnell's research shows that elevated play arousal combined with sudden isolation creates what she calls emotional whiplash, the neurological equivalent of slamming on the brakes at full speed. But there's another layer to this countdown that involves scent molecules. Number 2. The goodbye that feels like grief. So you bend down, look them in the eyes and say something like, "Be good, I'll be back soon, I love you." It feels natural, necessary even. Well, veterinary behaviorists have discovered that emotional goodbyes activate the same brain regions in dogs that process grief. Your dog's brain literally interprets your emotional goodbye as a grief event every single time. And those sweet words and extra pets create what researchers call departure distress priming. The emotional energy signals that something terrible is about to happen. Dogs who receive these emotional goodbyes show 40% more destructive behavior in the first hour alone. And meanwhile, dogs whose owners simply walk out without ceremony barely register the event as significant. Their heart rate stays stable, their cortisol remains baseline, the departure becomes just another movement through space, not an emotional catastrophe. Number 3. 5 minutes before changes everything. A team at Tufts University studied something they called grounding touch, and the results challenged conventional separation anxiety advice. Now, the technique that reduced panic behaviors by 73% in their trials works like this. About 5 minutes before you leave, place your hand firmly on your dog's chest or shoulder. Not petting, not moving, just steady, even pressure for about 30 seconds. No talking, no eye contact, just that still grounding pressure. Now, this type of touch activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest response opposite to fight or flight. It literally slows their heart rate and decreases cortisol production. But you have to remain completely calm yourself. Dogs detect changes in human heart rate through chemosignals. Any anxiety you feel transfers through that touch. So for particularly touch-sensitive dogs, there's an alternative. Place your hand lightly over their paw, not holding, just covering, for the same 30 seconds. Now, this activates proprioceptive feedback that helps them feel physically grounded. The 5-minute timing hits a neurological sweet spot. The calming effect persists through your exit without becoming part of the anxiety chain. Number 4. Why grabbing the mail needs different rules. Your dog's stress response differs completely for a 5-minute departure versus an 8-hour workday. Using the wrong ritual for the wrong absence makes everything worse. So researchers monitoring heart rate variability discovered something unexpected. For absences under 15 minutes, dogs who received no departure ritual showed the least stress. Their owners just walked out. No goodbyes, no special touches, nothing. The dogs barely registered the departure. For these short absences, anything under 30 minutes, the best ritual is no ritual. Make your departure invisible. Walk out seamlessly while they're doing something else. Dr. Karen Overall's studies show these dogs don't even activate their separation response system. Their brains categorize it like you've gone to another room. Long absences, however, need completely different handling. For anything over 2 hours, dogs benefit from what behaviorists call predictable pre-departure sequencing. Now, the exact same series of calm actions every single time. Identical grounding touch in the same spot. Same neutral phase in the same tone. Same 30-second pause before opening the door. But this only works for long absences. Number 5. The critical first 15 seconds. So, after closing the door behind you, something happens that determines whether your dog panics or settles. Hidden camera studies revealed that dogs make a critical decision in the first 15 seconds after the door closes. And the trigger comes from what happened 30 seconds before the exit. Now, dogs whose owners paused, literally stood still for 30 seconds before leaving, were 60% more likely to settle within that crucial window. Just standing, maybe checking a phone, creating zero interaction or stimulation. Now, this pause allows their nervous system to down-regulate from whatever mild arousal the departure preparations caused. When that interaction doesn't come, panic floods their system. Some owners rush out quickly, thinking they're ripping off the Band-Aid. These dogs showed the highest panic scores of all. The sudden absence after visible preparations creates cognitive dissonance their brain can't process. But watch what happens if they position themselves differently. Number 6. Where they wait reveals everything. In the 10 minutes before typical departure time, dogs position themselves in revealing ways, and this positioning predicts exactly how they'll handle the absence. So, dogs who station themselves between you and the door show cortisol levels 85% higher than dogs positioned elsewhere. They're attempting to prevent the inevitable. Every departure becomes a battle they lose, reinforcing the trauma response. But dogs who follow from room to room in those final minutes are pre-grieving, maximizing contact before separation. The more they follow before departure, the worse their first hour alone. They're actually amplifying their own panic response through this behavior. The calmest dogs position themselves in what researchers call their safe zone, usually a bed or favorite spot where they can see the door without blocking it. And these dogs are already practicing being alone while you're still there, preparing their nervous system for what's coming. Number 7. Your scent becomes a countdown clock. Every time you leave, you create what researchers call a scent degradation timeline. Basically, your dog tracks how long you've been gone through molecular decay. And dogs detect scent molecules at concentrations as low as 1 part per trillion. They're literally tracking the decay curve of your smell throughout the day. And studies at Barnard College found that dogs estimate absence duration within a 20-minute margin based solely on scent degradation. The items touched right before leaving hold scent the strongest. The last thing becomes a temporal anchor. Some owners unknowingly create anxiety by touching the dog's favorite toy or bed right before leaving, turning comfort items into countdown clocks. Now, the solution seems backward. About 10 minutes before departure, deliberately touch an item near the door, a specific mat or cushion. This creates a scent bridge. Your strongest scent remains at the exit point, which makes your absence feel less absolute. Dogs with access to these scent bridges show 50% less vocalization in the first hour. And for long absences, rotating unwashed clothing items provides consistent scent concentration that doesn't trigger time-tracking instincts. Number 8. The pattern behind meltdown days. So every experienced dog parent knows meltdown days, when their usually stable dog suddenly can't handle being alone. Researchers identified a pattern that predicts these crisis days with 80% accuracy. Meltdown days follow what scientists call social surplus events, days with unusually high interaction, weekend gatherings, playdates, or working from home. The contrast between high social contact and sudden isolation triggers differential stress response. Basically, the dog's brain can't regulate this dramatic stimulation shift. Dopamine and oxytocin levels crash harder than usual, creating withdrawal-like symptoms. The more intense the social day, the worse tomorrow's separation anxiety. A protocol prevents these meltdowns. On high social days, build in micro-separations. Close a door between you and your dog for 5 minutes, 3 times during the social day. You may do everything a good dog owner is supposed to do, and yet there are things your dog deeply loves that may almost never happen. Number 10. The power of doing nothing. So most owners think quality time means activity, playing fetch, going for a run, teaching a new trick. But there's something your dog craves that requires absolutely zero effort from you. Now, dogs are social creatures with deep pack instincts, and in the wild, wolves spend most of their time simply existing together, resting near each other, breathing the same air, not doing anything at all really. And this quiet togetherness is called passive companionship, and researchers have measured its effects. So a 2019 study from the University of Lincoln found that dogs showed lower cortisol levels when their owners were simply present in the room, even when there was no direct interaction. Just being near you, with no agenda, calms their nervous system in a way that active play cannot replicate. Their stress hormones drop, their heart rate slows. But here's where things get tricky. Most owners are constantly multitasking, working on laptops, scrolling through phones, moving from room to room. Now, dogs pick up on this distracted energy. They sense when you're physically present but mentally somewhere else. And while they don't complain, they feel the difference. Now try this. Set aside 10 minutes where you do nothing but sit near your dog. No phone, no TV, you just exist in the same space. Now you might notice something strange. Your dog will look at you differently. Maybe a slow blink, a deep exhale, a subtle shift in their body language. And some dogs will inch closer during these moments, others will finally let their muscles relax completely, and a few will do something subtle but unmistakable. They'll sigh. That long exhale that sounds almost human. But here's the thing, most owners never sit still long enough to see it happen. Number 9. Let them finish the sniff. Okay, you're on a walk and your dog hits a scent and stops. At a tree, a patch of grass, a fence post, a lamppost, or just whatever's nearby. They sniff and sniff and sniff some more. And you feel the urge to tug the leash and say, "Oh, come on, let's go." Sound familiar? Yeah, most owners treat walks as exercise, a chance to burn energy and get from point A to point B. But watch your dog's face when they find an interesting smell. Their whole body changes. Ears forward, nostrils flaring, total focus. Now, dogs have up to 300 million olfactory receptors in their noses. Humans have about 6 million. Their sense of smell is somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 times more sensitive than ours. So when your dog sniffs a patch of grass, they're reading information we can't even imagine. Who was here, when they passed by, what they ate, how they felt, male or female, healthy or sick. And researchers at Barnard College call these sniffaries, walks where dogs are allowed to lead with their noses, exploring whatever catches their interest. And studies show that dogs who get regular sniffaries display fewer signs of anxiety and frustration compared to dogs who are rushed through their walks. The mental stimulation of sniffing is actually more tiring than physical exercise alone. So, next time your dog freezes at a lamppost, resist the urge to pull. Give them an extra 30 seconds or so. Watch their tail, watch their focus. If you notice your dog sniffing the same spot for an unusually long time, don't assume they're being stubborn. They might just have found something genuinely fascinating. A message from a dog they know, a scent that triggers a memory, and what they learn from that one spot might affect their mood for the rest of the walk. Number 8. Whisper their name. So you probably say your dog's name dozens of times a day, calling them for dinner, getting their attention, telling them to stop chewing the couch. But here's something most owners never try: whispering it. So dogs are extremely attuned to tone, and studies from Eötvös Loránd University in Hungary found that dogs process both the meaning of words and the emotional tone behind them. They use different parts of their brain for each. A loud, commanding tone activates their alertness. A calm, soft tone signals safety. So when you whisper your dog's name, watch what happens. Their ears perk forward, their body relaxes, they lean in, trying to catch every sound. You're inviting them into a quiet moment that feels private, just the two of you. And the way they respond tells you something important about how much your voice matters to them. Now, this works especially well with dogs who are anxious or reactive. A whispered name can break through their stress without adding more noise to an already overwhelming environment. So try it tonight. When your dog is resting nearby, whisper their name just loud enough for them to hear. Watch for the slow tail wag, the softening eyes, the way they might inch closer. Dogs live in a world full of sounds. Cars, doorbells, barking from the neighbor's yard. Your whisper cuts through all of that. It lands differently. Now, what if your dog could feel your calm without you saying a single word? Number 7. Match their breathing. So, you're sitting on the couch, your dog is nearby, but they seem restless, panting lightly, shifting positions. You haven't done anything stressful, so why are they on edge? Check your own breathing. Chances are it's shallow and fast, and here's what most people miss. Dogs pick up on this instantly. They might not understand why you're tense, but they feel it radiating off you. And because dogs mirror their owners emotionally, your tension often becomes their tension. Now, a study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science found that dogs synchronize their behavior with their owners in multiple ways, including activity levels and stress responses. So when you calm down, they calm down. It's called co-regulation, which basically means your body sends signals that their body responds to automatically. Now, here's how to use this. Next time you're sitting with your dog, take a few slow, deep breaths. Inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 6. Don't force it, just let your body settle. Watch your dog. You might notice their eyes getting heavy, their muscles relaxing, a yawn, which in dogs often signals a release of tension. And this works especially well during storms, fireworks, or really any situation that triggers anxiety. And instead of trying to distract your dog with treats or toys, try simply breathing with them. Sit close, let them feel the slower rhythm. Some dogs will yawn, others will lie down, a few will press their body against yours. The shift usually happens within minutes. Number 6. Give them choices. Now, much of your dog's life is controlled by you, we know. When they eat, where they walk, what they're allowed to sniff, who they meet. Dogs accept this, but here's what most owners never consider. Dogs benefit from moments of autonomy just like humans do. So, research on animal welfare consistently shows that control over one's environment reduces stress. And a study from the University of Bristol found that dogs who had opportunities to make choices showed fewer signs of what scientists call learned helplessness. Now, that's when an animal stops trying because nothing they do seems to matter. And dogs with choices stayed more engaged, more curious, and more alive. Now, of course, this doesn't mean letting your dog run wild. It means offering small choices within safe boundaries. So, at the start of a walk, let them pick the direction. When you reach a fork in the path, pause and see where they want to go. Offer 2 different toys and let them choose which one to play with. These moments seem tiny, but watch your dog's body language when you follow their lead. Many dogs stand taller, move with more confidence, their whole energy shifts, and the effects last longer than the walk itself. So pay attention to what your dog gravitates toward naturally. Some dogs love grassy areas, others just prefer the pavement. Some want to explore every tree, and others want to move quickly. When you start actually noticing these patterns, you can tailor walks to their preferences. And another area where choice matters is rest. If your dog keeps moving to a specific spot, even though you've set up their bed elsewhere, well, that's a choice worth respecting. They're telling you something about what makes them feel secure, and security is exactly what the next gesture is about. Number 5. Acknowledge their alerts. Right, your dog barks at the window. Your first instinct is to shush them or pull them away. But hold on a second. Do you know why they're barking in the first place? Now, dogs evolved as guardians. For thousands of years, their job was to alert the pack to potential threats. So when your dog barks at a passing stranger or a delivery truck, they're doing exactly what their instincts tell them to do. They're protecting you. But here's the problem. When you dismiss their alert without acknowledgement, your dog gets confused. They tried to communicate something important and you didn't respond. So what do? Well, they bark louder. They escalate, because clearly you didn't get the message the first time. Now, this is where things often go wrong between dogs and owners. And instead, try this approach. When your dog alerts you to something, walk calmly to where they are, look at what they're looking at, say something like, "Oh, I see it. Good job, boy." Then gently redirect them with a calm voice or a treat. Now, this simple acknowledgement changes everything. You're telling your dog, okay, I heard you, I checked it out, we're safe. They don't need to keep sounding the alarm because you've taken over. And of course, behaviorists have a word for this, and it's called checking in. It satisfies your dog's need to be heard without encouraging excessive barking. And over time, many dogs naturally become calmer because they trust that you're paying attention. Now, one thing to avoid: never punish alerting behavior. Your dog can't tell the difference between a genuine threat and a harmless jogger. All they know is something moved, and they wanted you to know about it. Punishing this creates confusion about when they should communicate at all. So how do you build trust over time instead of just in stressful moments? Number 4. Create predictable rituals. There's a dog who starts wagging his tail every evening around 8 p.m. Not because anything special happens at 8 p.m, but because that's when his owner picks up a specific blanket. And that blanket always means cuddle time. Always, without fail. Now this is the power of rituals. They go beyond schedules. Rituals are specific actions that always happen the same way, in the same order, tied to the same moments. And dogs don't just notice them, they live for them. Because rituals create anticipation, and anticipation for dogs is often more exciting than the reward itself. So a study from the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna found that dogs showed increased dopamine activity not when they received a treat, but when they anticipated receiving it. So how do you go about creating rituals? Well, think about transitions in your dog's day. Waking up, mealtime, before walks, bedtime. Now add small, consistent actions to each one. Maybe, for example, you always scratch behind their ears before putting on the leash. Maybe you have a specific phrase you say before dinner. Maybe bedtime always includes a few minutes of quiet petting in the same spot. And watch what happens after a few weeks. Your dog will start responding to these cues before you even complete them. The leash scratch becomes the signal that an adventure is coming. The bedtime phrase means safety and sleep. And pay attention to accidental rituals too. You might already have them without actually realizing it. The way you jingle your keys before leaving, the sound of your coffee maker in the morning. Dogs memorize these patterns and attach meaning to them. Every single one, which brings up a question. What happens when your dog sends a signal and you miss it entirely? Number 3. Respect their no. So dogs communicate constantly. Tail positions, ear angles, body posture, eye contact. But one of the most important signals is also the most ignored, the subtle ways they ask for space. So a turned head, a lick of the lips, a yawn when they're not tired, moving away when you reach toward them. These are all polite requests for distance, and many owners, even caring ones, override these signals without realizing what they mean. So the consequences build up slowly, but they are real. When you force affection on a dog who is clearly asking for space, you teach them that their signals don't work. And over time, this creates frustration. Dogs who feel unheard sometimes stop giving subtle signals altogether. They jump straight to growling or snapping because, well, nothing else worked. A study published in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior found that most dog bites happen after multiple warning signals were ignored. And dogs almost always communicate before they react. We just don't always listen. So, respecting your dog's no looks like this. You reach to pet them, they turn their head away. You pull your hand back and give them space. No drama, no guilt, just acknowledgement that they're not in the mood right now. Now, this might seem small, but the effects compound. Dogs who know their boundaries will be respected become more confident. They're more likely to seek affection on their terms because they trust you won't push. Think about it from their perspective. I mean, imagine someone twice your size constantly reaching for you whenever they felt like it. You'd tense up too, right? Now, there's one moment that appears every single day where your response matters more than you might realize. Number 2. Celebrate the small returns. You leave for 5 minutes, you come back. Your dog loses their mind, tail wagging, spinning in circles, acting like you just returned from war. Now, most owners laugh it off or push past it, but this reaction deserves attention because dogs live entirely in the present. They don't process time the way we do. Whether you're gone 5 minutes or 5 hours, the relief they feel when you return is very real. They spent every moment of that 5 minutes aware of your absence, and now you're back. A 2015 study from Sweden measured dogs' heart rates and cortisol levels when their owners returned home, and the results showed clear physiological changes. Elevated heart rates followed by relaxation once the greeting was complete. And this wasn't performance, it was a genuine emotional release. And what you do in that moment shapes how they handle the next separation. So how should you respond? Well, instead of brushing past their excitement, pause. Get down to their level, speak warmly, let them sniff you. Give them 30 seconds of full attention before moving on with your day. Now, this doesn't mean encouraging jumping or barking. You can acknowledge their joy calmly without rewarding chaotic behavior. A warm voice and gentle touch do the job. The point is recognition. So some owners worry that big greetings make separation anxiety worse, and research doesn't support this. What makes anxiety worse is unpredictability and emotional coldness. Dogs who know they'll receive a warm welcome actually handle separations better because they have something positive to anticipate. But there's one more thing dogs wait for, and most people never even notice they're doing it. Number 1. Let them watch you sleep. Okay, here's something you might have noticed. At night, your dog often chooses a spot that keeps you within sight, or keeps an eye on the outside of your space, like a hallway, doorway, or window. And some settle near the bed, some prefer the floor nearby, some do a quiet check-in and then resettle once they've seen you're there. This is guarding behavior, and dogs are hardwired to protect their pack. In the wild, wolves take turns keeping watch while others rest. Sleep means vulnerability, and being trusted to guard sleeping pack members is a role many dogs take seriously. Now, when you let your dog observe you sleeping, whether that means they're in the bedroom or just able to see you through an open door, you're giving them a job, a purpose. You're saying, "I trust you to keep us safe." Now, some dogs take this role very seriously. They position themselves facing the door, they perk up at every sound, and others are more casual, resting nearby but clearly staying aware. You can tell the difference by watching their ears. Even when their eyes are closed, their ears rotate towards sounds. So one thing many owners don't realize is that dogs who are isolated at night often experience more anxiety than dogs who can at least see their family. It's not just about companionship, it's about being included in the pack's most vulnerable moments. Now, this doesn't mean your dog must sleep in your bed. That's a personal choice. But if your dog sleeps in a different room entirely, consider leaving the door open. Let them check on you. Let them know you're okay. Now, dogs who feel purposeful are generally happier dogs, and few purposes feel as important as watching over the people they love. You might wake up to find your dog staring at you. Their tail might wag once, slowly, when your eyes meet, and then they'll settle back down. Until the next sound, of course, catches their attention. Forever person status is rare. Sad as it is, some dogs never pick a single human for life, and are loving and friendly with many humans equally. So how do you know if your dog locked onto you permanently as their one and only forever person? A lot of dogs like to sleep near one of their human family members, whether that be just in the room or in the bed with them. But the true litmus test, well, that's more than just proximity. The real icing on the cake, or gravy on the kibble as it were, is if they deliberately place their nose near or ever against your skin. It could be your cheek, hand, foot, anything really, even the curve of your ankle. But if their nose is connecting to your skin like a Lego bricks, it means they are trying to achieve what I am going to call, and this is less disgusting than it sounds, a stream of scent. You know how the smell of your nan's house, or your partner's sweater, or your mum's cooking helps you feel grounded and at peace? Well, your dog has that with the smell of you, but dialed up to the 100th degree because of how superhumanly powerful their noses are. So choosing to get as close as they can to that smell when snoozing is a very big sign, because it means that when they are in the mood to be as relaxed as possible, and what is sleep if not the most relaxed state ever, they want to envelop themselves in the scent of you, because it helps them reach that place of zen. And of course, your dog might just flop into the bed with not much thought of where they are laying, and their wet snout lands on your arm by chance. So there are 3 key signs to keep an eye out for to check whether that's the case, or if they are genuinely trying to get all up in your odor. Now firstly, if there is a warmer or softer spot, but your dog still chooses to orient their nose towards you, well then your smell is more important to them than comfort. Secondly, after brief disturbances, for example you move, stretch, someone, hopefully someone you know, walks in, your dog will reorient their nose back towards you. And finally, they remain in that nose-to-you posture when they slip into the REM sleep, rather than shifting away. So all these things are very real signs they're making an active effort to smell you as they sleep. And yes, there's proper science to all of this. Proximity, comfort, and crucially scent are all deeply intertwined in the dog-human bond. The sensitivity of your dog's nose is off the charts, and they will often use smell to regulate their emotional state. Now, the problem is, the piece the action achieves is very fragile, and there are a few things you might do that, well, sadly break it. Firstly, interfering with your natural smell too much. So, strong perfumes, deodorants, scented laundry detergents, or fabric softeners can mask that natural scent of yours, and as much as you might prefer the smell of aftershave to what you naturally give off, your precious pooch does not. They want to smell you. Now, don't worry, I'm not saying you have to avoid showers to keep your dog loving you, but there's a balance to be found between smelling good for you and smelling good for them. Secondly, if you sometimes tolerate it, sometimes scold it, sometimes allow, sometimes forbid, your poor pup will start to get very, very confused. And that inconsistency, and inconsistency in general, if I'm honest, can sadly be very anxiety-inducing for your poor dog. So if you're going to have a dog in your home, you need to pick if they are welcome in your bed or not, and then stick with that choice. Now the thing is, sometimes you might want just a splash of distance between them and you. Not because you don't adore them, of course, because of course you do, but for a myriad of possible reasons. Maybe your home is really warm, and as much as you love having a cuddle, having a big, hot, slobbering dog literally on top of you is a touch too much. And if this sounds like you, there are some tactics you can deploy to get a wee bit of space without breaking the bond. Firstly, designate a consistent, it's okay to settle here buddy zone near you. Perhaps a blanket edge, a permitted part of the bed or floor, somewhere where your dog knows they can be close to you without bothering you. Secondly, avoid petting through REM twitches. If they stir, don't jolt them away. Just softly pause or let them readjust. And finally, if you need to move them, do so gradually. Disengage one limb at a time, talk gently, and allow them to reposition themselves. Nail all of those things and your dog will feel safe regularly hopping into bed with you purely so they can get up close and personal with the thing that makes them feel the safest, your scent, when times are the darkest. Literally, I mean, because, of course, it's nighttime. But not all the signs your dog sees you as their favourite person happen at night. Let's say you're at a dog park with your precious pooch, with an abundance of other dogs and dog owners, or perhaps a barbecue with friends. Food on picnic tables, the wafting sense of hot meat rapturing the attention of every dog there. Then someone arrives with a new plate of food, the nicest smelling yet, and all the dogs go racing over to get a good old-fashioned sniff of the newly arrived tasty treats. Hey, who can blame them? I mean, they're dogs. But your dog, well, they do something different. They break free from the pack. Literally, without being called, they choose to come to you, picking you over hanging out with the other dogs or eating food. Now sure, they may glance at the food, they may have a quick cheeky sniff of the butts of one of the other dogs, but once they've assessed everything on the menu, they still choose you instead of sausages. Now that's a huge deal if you ask me, because I prefer sausages to most people. Choosing you over immediate rewards or social stimuli means your dog values you more than food or distraction in that moment. Now it's not always that they ignore the law, but that the residual pull of you wins out. And while it's kind of a joke that dogs are always hungry and focused on food, and who are we kidding, there's an awful lot of truth in that, there is some amazing research into reward preferences among dogs that supports the notion that while food is a strong motivator, relationships and repeated positive interactions reshape what dogs value. So earlier this year, which at the time of recording is 2025, hello from the past, a study was conducted on 61 free-ranging dogs in India, by which I mean dogs who have no set owner but live in close proximity with humans. Now in this study, researchers wanted to find out what really wins a dog's heart faster, food or affection. And to figure this out, they had two strangers interact with the dogs. One of them, well, they offered the dogs food, and the other, you guessed it, had nothing to offer but love. So, what happened next? Well, the dogs chose the person with food. Of course they did. It's food. But as time went on, as the days rolled by, as the dogs grew to know the humans, they started to see the food and love as equal, as it didn't matter to them anymore who had the food because both strangers had earned their trust. Now, what the test proved was that, yes, food grabs a dog's immediate attention, but once they truly dig you, you officially come to mean more to them than calories. Now, lots of pet parents want their dogs to be like this, so never fear, I come well equipped with tips and tricks on how to reinforce this sort of behavior over time. Firstly, and this may seem odd, but bear with me here, don't always lure them towards you with treats. It's a common tactic when you want your dog to approach you, and I get it. It would work on me, who doesn't want free snacks. But all that's really doing is training them to go for food. Let them come to you on their own. Then reward with praise, touch, or play. Maybe some food, but never just food. Secondly, as frustrated as you might be at times, try to avoid punishing or scolding them when they stray, especially so in social settings like the fictional barbecue I described earlier. And finally, and perhaps most crucially, cultivate your presence energy, which is my slightly pretentious way of saying endeavor to be calm, grounded, and interesting enough that you become a destination. Now, I think that might be what young people call aura farming, but I'm not totally sure because I'm a cringy millennial. Do let me know in the comments if I've used that term right, won't you? Though on the subject of coming to you, their direction in general is a big sign. Now, this next habit is, as far as I'm concerned, beyond adorable. You may not have even noticed your dog doing it, but once I've explained it, I promise you that you'll spot dogs doing it all the time, and hopefully your own. I call it the test radius pattern. Now, let's say you bring your dog to a new place for a treat, perhaps a new park, maybe a strange field, or any kind of vacation spot. Many dogs might be so excited that they immediately charge off into the unknown like one of those toy cars you pull back and launch. But a dog who is in the presence of a human they've deemed their forever person, they handle things a little differently. So first, they step out maybe 10 or 20 feet from your side, and then they pause for a moment, looking back at you. Then they return, circling back to you. Then they repeat this, looping around like a security guard scanning the perimeter. And with each loop, they go a little further, always looking back until they are finally ready to step out from their little circle and stride onward with confidence. Now, it's easy to mistake this as clinginess or fear or a failure to explore, but it's more of a gentle push-pull dance of testing boundaries. And this odd looping behavior is a classic hallmark of attachment. If your dog does this, it means they're basically calibrating, trying to figure out if this new environment is safe enough to explore. And the huge compliment at play here is that what makes them feel safe is knowing that they've got you to come back to if things get a bit hairy. A group of researchers named Elisa Payne, Pauline Bennett, and Paul McGreevy looked into how our personalities and attitudes can shape a dog's behavior and even the strength of our bond with them. And their study, published on PubMed Central, found something pretty amazing. Simply put, dogs do not just love us, they use us as a kind of emotional anchor. And when they feel unsure, stressed, or in a new place, they check in with us for safety and confidence. Payne and her team found that dogs show what is called a proximity-seeking behavior. And that means they explore more freely when their favorite human is around, because we are their version of a safe base. So, this looping back behavior may seem just sort of quirky, but is a living expression of that theory. If you want to embrace and embolden this habit of theirs, I've got 5 handy tips for you. First, be present but not intrusive. Let your precious pooch choose when to return. Don't wave or call them constantly. Second, reinforce return behavior with calm praise and reward without making it a scramble or high drama. Third, avoid panic or pulling. Don't leash jerk them back. Let their momentum draw them back naturally. Fourth, stay calm. If you look nervous, they'll loop more frequently. And finally, use new spaces occasionally so they practice the expansion dynamic without you. Be relaxed with them, and they'll be relaxed back. And while we're talking about being relaxed, now, from time to time, as dog owners, we have to get our fingers dirty and get involved with things like grooming, cleaning their ears, and just day-to-day care. And these moments are less glamorous and fun than a big adventure to the park, but it's a highly intimate moment between your dog and you. So, of course, some rather telling things can happen. Now let's say you reach for your dog's paw. Maybe you inspect their ears, or brush their teeth, or at the very least, touch or hold their jaw. If anyone else does this to your dog, even someone they love, maybe your dog braces a little, or perhaps there's just simmering tension like this whistling of a kettle. It's subtle tension, but tension nonetheless. But if it's you who is handling them in this hypothetical scenario, well, they relax and chill out far more swiftly. They might even sigh, soften their eyes, and melt into your touch like they're actually enjoying it. Now sure, they might do it for others, but they reach that level of relaxation with you faster than they do with other family members or even professional trainers and vets. Now it's not that they love every procedure, and to be frank, they probably don't. But this difference in ease and speed matters. Because if their chilled out mode unlocks more readily with you, well, that's a huge deal. Because that means they feel safe enough with you to tolerate what could be a scary moment for them. If your dog isn't like this with you, it may be worth trying to cultivate it. And of course, I've got some tips to achieve that. First, may be obvious, but use a calm and soft vocal tone. And always move gradually, reading their body language as you do. If your dog tenses, take a moment to pause, soften your approach, and back away for a moment. Don't force a physical interaction that they don't want. But my favorite tip, something I feel is super underrated, actually begins long before you need to interact with your dog like this. If you are only touching their paws and ears during these high-stress moments, they're always going to fear it because of the association. But if you occasionally make sure to lightly touch those areas during play sessions, it builds a higher tolerance as they don't automatically associate that touch with bad times. Now, I've made videos before about how some dogs make a real habit out of following humans like we are a rock band and they are our roadies. But there's a quirky subcategory I don't feel I've given enough attention to in past videos. Does your dog follow you from room to room like they cannot bear to be without you, but once you finally settle in a room, they keep their distance? Well, they still join you in the room, but for some reason they sit at the other end of it. Feels a bit weird, right? What was the point in hounding me like that if you don't want to be all up close and personal? It's like someone texting you all day every day asking to hang out, but then when you offer to go for a coffee, they ghost you. Now, if a relationship is nice and secure, there's a good balance between being together but not crowding. And to be fair, that's not just the case when it comes to the dynamic between humans and dogs, but between humans and other humans, if you get my meaning. But if your dog behaves like this with you, it means there is a good balance between loving you enough to want to be with you, but respecting you enough to let you have your own space. And perhaps more importantly, feeling confident enough to have some independence from time to time. And that confidence can extend to how they greet you. So there's a certain cliche when it comes to being greeted by a dog, and it's a cliche that exists for a reason, because, well, it's true. When they've been home alone for a few hours because we sadly had no choice but to go to work, apparently I want to stay home and hug my dog all day is not a valid reason to skip a shift, our pups will sometimes freak out and bouncing like their legs are made of pogo sticks when we finally come in through the door. Now, with that in mind, if I tell you a dog who sees you as their favorite person in the world has a very specific way of greeting you, what do you think that is? Curiously, it's not actually pogo leg mode. In the general study of attachment, the theory is that secure attachments enable distress at separation and joy at reunion. Pretty obvious, to be fair, not to undermine the work of the researchers or anything. Now, as heartbreaking as this is, a large part of why our dogs can get so excited when we come home isn't that they love us or miss us, it's that they feared we might never return. Which is why attachment theory also suggests that a dog who feels truly bonded and safe with their pet parent is confident their human will come home eventually. It takes two to tango. A dance works best when both parties are moving together. Movement synchrony across species, in this case a human and a dog, often indicates rapport, trust, and mutual attunement. Now, in humans, couples or parent-child dyads often unconsciously sync physiology, pacing, and gestures when emotionally aligned. And yes, it can happen between your dog and you as well. Now, if your movements become predictable and smooth enough, and crucially, if your dog cares enough to pay attention, which they will if you're their fave, they will become tuned to your walking style. Everything from gait shifts to hesitations and speed. Now, instead of lagging behind on a walk or charging ahead like they assume you can up with their Barry Allen levels of speed, they happily stroll along, totally in sync, like you and them are partners in a ballet. And if you are your dog's forever person, their pace will likely mirror yours. If you slow, they slow. If you veer a little, they anticipate or adapt direction without prompting. You don't have to micromanage them. It's not perfect healing, and it's not slavish copying. It's a natural, unspoken linkage in movement. Really interesting, there are unfinished studies happening right now exploring the idea that getting in sync with our movements is just the beginning. And these studies in progress suggest a dog who has truly chosen a human as their forever person may well sync heart rate and breathing patterns with them. So, the ultimate sign that your dog sees you as their forever person is, oddly, that they sort of start to become you. Your dog has fears you never see. The kind that quietly break their heart while you think everything's fine. It's not the vacuums or thunderstorms. The fears that haunt your dog run deeper. And the worst part is, unknowingly, you might be a part of those fears. The invisible rejection. Some people think dogs don't communicate much, but those people are very wrong. Bringing you a toy, dropping it at your feet, then staring at you unexpectedly, well, that's communication. And fun fact, dogs often drop the toy closer to your dominant hand, especially if they've noticed which one you use more. Right-handed? Well, that giraffe is probably landing on your right side. They're strategizing how to get your attention. The issue is, too many humans are bad interpreters. Your dog might be saying, "Hey, so, I quite dig some company around about right now?" And if you respond by aimlessly scrolling through TikTok and barely acknowledging them, or the stuffed giraffe, or whatever it is, well, research in applied animal behavior science states that even the briefest periods of perceived inattention can trigger stress-related behaviors. And one experiment found that dogs stared 20% longer at owners who were texting than ones who were just sitting still, as if they were waiting for them to mentally come back. So, when you're busy or distracted, your dog isn't just lonely, they're feeling dismissed. Even the type of screen matters. Dogs can recognize when you're watching TV versus mindlessly scrolling. TV often has movement and sound they can track, but a still human staring silently at a quiet phone, well, that triggers social shutdown faster. Because of how bad this makes them feel, they really do fear it. And given how badly too much stress can make them behave in the long term, you should fear it just as much. Now, you don't have to abandon everything to be there for your dog. You've got a life. But even short bursts of meaningful attention go a long way. Drop the phone, kneel down, and connect. Make eye contact. Use your voice warmly. Those small moments feel huge to them. Every bit of presence matters, more than you think. The overlooked heartbreak. There is a very real reason why an estimated 5% of the population suffer with hypochondria, now officially recognized as an anxiety disorder, not just overthinking. Even the tiniest twinge in our bodies can trigger panic, and our dogs feel the same fear when something doesn't feel right inside them. What makes it worse? Well, the moment they realize their favorite person in the world, i.e. you, hasn't noticed. That's when the fear deepens. Some dogs, especially those highly bonded to their humans, will even pretend to be okay just to keep up. In one study, senior dogs would push through hikes with their families, hiding their limp, only to collapse from pain and exhaustion afterward. This behavior has deep roots. Dogs evolved from wolves, and in wolf packs, showing weakness could lead to exclusion. That survival instinct still lingers, which is why even a domesticated dog might try to mask their discomfort, hoping not to seem less than. So, how can you spot the truth behind the mask? Well, the key is noticing the subtle signs and realizing that weird behavior is often a cry for help. Some classic hints include slower movement, reluctance to jump, changes in appetite, or a sudden increase or decrease in grooming. But it gets even more specific than that. Some dogs flinch at nothing in particular. No touch, no sound, just a sudden startle that actually reflects a nerve twinge or internal sensation like a static shock. And perhaps most surprising, A wagging tail can lie. Dogs in pain sometimes wag just the tip of their tail, even when they're stressed or hurting. Some dogs will match your pace on walks even when it hurts, because they want to stay close. And that kind of emotional masking can fool even the most attentive owner. So, if something feels off, even slightly, don't second-guess yourself. Check in with your vet. What seems minor might be a moment your dog is silently begging you to notice, because the only thing scarier than being in pain is being in pain alone. The confusion of mixed signals. Consistency is your dog's oxygen. Imagine how scared you'd be if you couldn't rely on oxygen. If you train your dog that they can sit on the couch whenever they want, but then one day you randomly lose your temper when they hop on up, well, you've robbed them of consistent rules. And for your dog, being punished for something they thought was A-OK is a really deep phobia. This is because when your signals are mixed, your dog's brain spins like a hamster who has been fed a diet of nothing but sugar. They will come to be nervous around you, never knowing if they might get yelled at any moment for a misdemeanor they didn't even know they were committing. How do you make this right? Well, the key, perhaps predictably, but that's a good thing, is to be, well, predictable. If you say sit, stay, or wait, follow through consistently. Celebrate obedience with praise, touch, and treats. Your dog's heart isn't just following instructions, it is learning to trust that the world is safe, one command at a time. The ignored heartbreak. Dogs, like prisons, have boundaries. Now, you may love a hug from time to time, maybe even a smooch, but not all dogs will share that enthusiasm. No matter how desperate you might be for a hug from your dog, the same rules apply to your physical relationship with dogs as it applies to your physical relationship with other humans. Overstepping your dog's boundaries is a no, so big you can see it from space, because it creates a constant low-grade anxiety that leaves your poor pup trapped, living in a consistent stage of ambient fear. Now, some folks don't take this seriously, their argument being, well, my dog has never resisted my hugs. But according to the book Decoding Your Dog by the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior, dogs display subtle signs of discomfort or stress that are easily missed. So, high chances are your dog is simply tolerating your hug. Now, the key is to learn to read body language so you can detect when they're not enjoying things despite not pulling away. Classic signs include pinning their ears back, lip licking, turning the head, or stiff posture, and these are all ways dogs communicate discomfort. Respect these signals, offer affection on their terms, and watch the love meter rise to maximum levels. The trauma of loud gestures. In general, dogs can handle big noises and abrupt movements, even sudden and unexpected ones. But daily life can still be full of micro-traumas. Breeds like Border Collies, Papillons, and Shelties, all bred for fast response to human cues, are especially vulnerable to this. What makes them great at agility also makes them hyper-aware of your every twitch. Even non-threatening sudden movements can be perceived as threatening by dogs. In fact, a study in animal cognition found that dogs who experienced a sudden, startling gesture from a specific human were measurably more hesitant to approach that person days later, even if the gesture was unintentional and brief. This kind of tension builds up in the body. It increases cortisol levels. And what does cortisol cause? That's right, stress, anxiety, fear. You might even notice your dog blinking more than usual, not out of sleepiness, but because blinking is a common self-soothing behavior in dogs trying to cope with uncertainty. If you have a rather skittish dog, prone to being spooked by this kind of volume and suddenness, try to slow down if you can. Move with intention. In many shelters, staff are taught to use slow hands, deliberately visible, calm movements to prevent triggering dogs who flinch at quick gestures. It's a small shift that builds big trust. The silent shame. Now, there's something I say a lot into this microphone. Dogs are social creatures. And because of that, for the even more social ones, being ignored or excluded can be utterly devastating. If you leave your dog alone frequently without any kind of enrichment or interaction, that sends a message that you see their company as optional. And sadly, we all have experiences of that friend who treats us like that. And it sucks, right? and studies show that social isolation upsets dogs just as much as it upsets us, leading to a rise in cortisol. But just like the problem of ignoring their signals, solving this one is easier than Sunday morning. Give them attention. And if you don't have the time, even short sessions of interactivity are enough. And if you need to be out for long stretches, make sure the house is rife with things for them to keep their claws and snouts busy, like puzzle feeders and scent games. Vacuum cleaners. I mean, all this talk of big, serious emotional things, but we all know one of dogs' biggest fears is just a vacuum cleaner. I mean, I saved this one to the end because it's kind of funny. But that fear is rooted in something genuine. Vacuums roar, whine, and change pitch unpredictably. To a dog's ultra-sensitive hearing, they hear about 4 times better than us and at higher frequencies like superheroes. So that mechanic sound is overwhelming and distressing. Not to mention how frantically and unpredictably they move. All that stuff I was saying earlier about dogs being scared of loud noises and unpredictability, well, that's why the vacuum cleaner can freak them out. So, not as random and silly as it seems. They watch you, judge you, and they've already made up their mind. You just haven't noticed the signs yet. Some are subtle, some sting a little, but they all reveal exactly what your dog really thinks of you. Shifting closer in their sleep. Dogs can even let us know what they feel about us when they're asleep by showcasing subconscious attachment. If your dog subtly shifts closer to you while sleeping, even without waking fully, experts think this is a clear expression that they feel safe and trust you. In fact, in lab sleep studies, dogs have been recorded subtly wagging their tails while dreaming, but only when sleeping next to their favorite human. And if you have more than one dog, the one that curls up closest to you isn't necessarily the most dominant. It's usually the one who's most emotionally bonded to you. Physical closeness during rest is their way of saying, "You're my person." So, if you wake up and notice they've scooted their butt against your leg or placed a paw on your foot, that means your dog doesn't even need to think to know they like being near you. Pausing before coming. Now brace yourself, because this one may sting worse than headbutting a hornet's nest. You're standing in the kitchen or out in the garden. You call your dog's name, and there's a pause, just a flicker, a moment where they don't move, not yet. Now, to the untrained eye, this may look like a classic case of defiance, stubbornness even. But inside your dog's head, a storm fierce enough to shipwreck Prospero is raging. Your dog isn't ignoring you, they're thinking. Because it's easy to think of dogs as bundles of instinct, but they're a lot more emotional than we give them credit for. They think, feel, and assess, and in that tiny pause, they are measuring everything about the moment. Not just the command itself, but you. Heavy stuff, right? Scientists have looked into this, naturally. Research on canine cognitive bias, like the study by McGowan and colleagues in 2014, found that dogs do not simply hear a word and act. They evaluate. They consider the tone of your voice, your recent behavior, and the tension in your body. Did you scold them earlier? Did you raise your voice just now? Are you tense, tired, or annoyed? That pause is not rebellion. Think of it more as emotional arithmetic. It is your dog's way of saying, "I want to come to you, but I need to know I'm being called for a good thing." And if they do come to you, even with that hesitation, that's a moment of quiet bravery. Because you might have done something that worried them earlier. Maybe you yelled at the TV when watching tennis, and they're confused why you'd be so angry at lovely tennis balls, and they don't know that anger won't reach them. If you notice it is happening, try softening your voice. Try crouching down a little, opening your body, letting them see your safe ground. Welcome them. Because when a dog has doubts and still chooses you, that's not a failure of training. That's just thinking before they act. Eye flicks. Your dog is busy. They've got a hectic life. I mean, at least by dog standards. I'm not saying they're a CEO or anything. And when you're sitting on the couch with them, you might find that they're totally preoccupied with the little tasks they've set for themselves. Whether that be the challenging undertaking of chewing a toy or the even harder task of trying to snooze. Yet, despite what they're doing, their eyes keep quickly flicking at you for a microsecond before they return their attention to the task at hand. And if you look closely, you might even catch a fluttery little blink. Not the slow, solitary kind cats do. Dogs blink more when they're relaxed and happy. In a 2012 study published in Animal Cognition, researchers found that dogs look back at their owners to seek emotional referencing in uncertain contexts. Because while dogs act independent, in their heart and mind they are tethered to you. If they keep looking at you, if only for a moment, even when they don't need to during those alone times, it means they care enough about you and need you enough to want to touch base. You're their reference point, their compass. Even in stillness or silence, you're the one they're quietly orbiting around. Now, there's a little more about eyes that I want to talk about, specifically the phenomenon known as whale eyes. But to truly understand whale eyes, there's something else we should touch upon first. Head turn. Because they are irresistible, you will occasionally lean down to kiss your dog on the head. And when you do, they might silently turn their head away. Now, lots of pet parents to precious pooches interpret this as adorable shyness. But is that true? Let me be the dog translator here. It is actually what professional behaviorists call a calming signal, a way to cool down when they feel stressed or anxious. Tori Doroga sums it up in her On Talking Terms with Dogs when she writes that turning the head or averting the gaze is a polite way for dogs to diffuse social pressure. Now, it's totally fine, of course, to kiss and hug your dog. What a dreadful world it would be if we weren't. But read their reactions. If they lean into you, they're feeling it at that moment. But if they turn away, they're possibly trying to let you know that, while they love you, physical affection is just a bit much right now. And it doesn't matter why, a no is a no. At that moment, they think, I love you, but I need a break. But they can also use the other end of their body to tell you what they think about you. Don't worry, I don't mean their butt. The slow motion wag. You don't need a dog expert to tell you that a fast tail wag is a sign of a happy dog. Or do you? Because, truth be told, there's more nuance to the specifics of tail wagging than there is to some human languages. From speed to rhythm to stiffness of tail, everything about how your dog wags their tail is a part of the overall message they are trying to send. And it's the slower wags, the ones that are almost in bullet time, I think are worth talking about. Dr. Stanley Coren notes that a slow wag that involves the whole back end usually signals a relaxed affiliative state and is directed toward individuals the dog feels emotionally secure with. So when you say, who's a good boy, and they start the lazy, happy sway, that's kind of a dog saying your voice is my favorite sound in the world. If your dog wags their tail fast when they hear you, that's great, they're a happy dog. But if they wag their tail in a slower, lazier way, well, that's a whole higher echelon of companionship. Whale eye. Now, I've touched upon a dog's eyes, and I've touched upon dogs turning their heads. But there is something very crucial dogs convey that requires both those things at once. It is perhaps one of the biggest red flags your dog can plant. Something to keep a watch out for. It's called whale eye, and you'll want to adjust your antics pretty quickly if your dog does it. Whale eye is when your dog keeps looking at you but turns their head, causing you to see the whites of their eyes as they do. That's not just a goofy pose. A 2009 study in Applied Animal Behavior Science explains that increased sclera exposure often correlates with discomfort or conflict in dogs. Now don't worry, it doesn't mean they dislike you overall, but it means that in that moment, your dog may just be tolerating your touch rather than actively enjoying it. Maybe they're tired, maybe they're guarding a chew toy. If you see this often, check how and when you're touching them, because love means respecting that they're allowed to say, not now. After that, you probably want to hear something more positive, I imagine. The micro-lick. Lots of the things on this list are pretty big gestures that it's kind of hard to miss. But there are some blink-and-you-miss-it ways your dog communicates with you that you are going to want to try to keep an eye out for. The absolute classic is the quick lick of the lips, like they've just had a donut and are dealing with sugar. When people do catch it, a common misconception is to assume that it is a sign that they are anticipating food, or just trying to wet some rather dry lips. But you know how earlier we were talking about Rugas's theory of calming signals? This is yet another. She writes that dogs will lick their lips as a subtle gesture to ease social tension. Now, this doesn't mean your dog feels tense around you, but it's often a sign of just small miscommunications in the moment. A classic being you moved too fast toward them. Try to think of it when you catch it as your dog's way of politely saying, "Whoa, slow down a sec. I need to process everything that's happening. It's a lot, bro." If you train yourself, because so much of owning a dog is training yourself more than training them, to notice these licks when they happen, you can adjust your actions accordingly. And to them, that will feel like respect. And knowing you respect them means they grow to trust you with ever more depth. You've done so much for your dog already, but there's one thing you've probably never tried. And the day you do, your dog's life will never be the same. Let's start with the easiest thing you can do. Your dog craves novelty, for sure, but they also need structure. And nowhere is this more evident than when it comes to the one thing most dogs love more than anything. Brace, because I'm about to say the W word. Yes, it's fine to take your dog on a walk to somewhere new. Mix it up from time to time. I mean, you'd be crazy not to, and your dog will love it. But that shouldn't be the norm. That should be special treats, with a standardized route being the default. So, something you can do once is cement a route that will be the standard for the times when you're not experimenting. Your dog treats familiar routes like their personal newspaper. They sniff, they track who's been there, and they confirm the world is as it should be. Every day they yearn to check that list of familiar places for what's changed and who's been there. When you give them a core route, you give them a permanent anchor of certainty. Even if other parts of their day are unpredictable, that walk grounds them, a way to touch base with the neighborhood. That's because dogs don't just sniff for fun. They may actually navigate using the Earth's magnetic field. And in a 2017 study from the Czech University of Life Sciences, researchers discovered that dogs consistently orient themselves along a north-south axis when sniffing and toileting on familiar routes. It's like a built-in compass that activates best when the terrain is known. So, when you walk the same path every day, you're letting them sync with a primal, ancient navigation system. And here's something you can actually watch for. If your dog's tail is up and stiff, they're alert or unsure. On a route they know well, their tail tends to lower and relax. Now, research in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior shows that tail position becomes visibly more relaxed when dogs are in environments that they trust. And this subtle shift is a physical sign of what's happening in their mind. Less anxiety, more ease, more joy. But it also has a benefit for you. Now, if a dog truly knows a route, they'll feel much more comfortable doing their business on that route. While new routes are thrilling and exciting, your dog hasn't had the chance to sniff them out yet and learn the lay of the land. On unfamiliar routes, they're decoding scents, scanning for danger, and gauging safety before even considering relieving themselves. And that's why you may find yourself having a few "we've been standing here for 15 minutes and you still haven't gone" standoffs. But now let's talk about the other end of their body. When you pet your dog, do it how you see fit. Your dog is your dog, you know them best. But there is one tried and tested trick that works across the board you'll want to fold into your petting tips and tricks. In dog communication, the orientation of your hand makes a huge difference. A palm down motion can feel dominant or even threatening, but a palm up gesture mimics a friendly greeting, like when dogs expose their belly or lower their head. It's non-threatening, safe, and deeply reassuring. So, at the end of every petting session, finish with a slow palm-up chin scratch right under the muzzle. The trigeminal nerve is one of the largest and most important nerves in the head. Both humans and dogs have it, and it's fascinating because it's not just for sensation. It can also affect the nervous system's overall state. And according to veterinary neurologist Nicholas Dodman, stimulation of the trigeminal nerve has a calming effect on the limbic system, which governs fear and anxiety. And this spot, under the chin, that is the spot where the trigeminal nerve branches out into literally hundreds of sensory endings. A good scratch here is the ultimate nervous system reset. So, If you do it at the end of every petting session, the conditioning kicks in. Over weeks and months, your dog begins to anticipate calm at the end of every interaction. And that's not just soothing, that's transformative. Now, there's a lot of talk about how dogs are pack animals, but it's easy to forget that they are also den animals. Imagine you're at home, but there's no bedroom to lock yourself away in when feeling blue. No private space to haul up in. Well, bad news alert, that's how your dog may feel if their whole environment is shared. Thankfully, there's something simple you can do to help them cope with that. And the best thing is, like everything I'm going to talk about on this list, it's a simple one-time decision. Set up a permanent safe spot, a little nook you've covered up that they can use as a hidey hole, or just a corner of the room where you put a dog bed that you've adorned with a blanket that smells like you. Giving them a space that is theirs and theirs alone gives them a safe little hiding spot to crawl away to when the mood strikes. And according to researchers at the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior, really helps reduce generalized anxiety and allows for self-regulation of stress. Behaviorists note that dogs often retreat to tight corners and under furniture during storms, fireworks, or moments of overwhelm, but to replicate the comforting feeling of a womb-like space. That enclosed pressure soothes their nervous system. And it doesn't have to be fancy. According to a BarkBox survey, over 60% of dogs preferred to curl up on worn clothes or used blankets that smelled like their owner. Some trainers even recommend building a sock fort. Yep, seriously, by piling up a few of your worn socks inside their bed or crate. It might look ridiculous, but your dog is a fort made of comfort and your scent. It triggers the same brain response they felt as a puppy cuddling against their littermates. Safe, enclosed, and surrounded by warmth. Dogs thrive when they have a small, predictable hideaway. Once you set it up, it requires no daily effort. Okay, so think that last trick sounded nice and swift? Well, this next one takes 10 seconds, if that. All you have to do is pick a word, or a phrase. Job done. Well, hold on, let me get a bit more specific. Pick a phrase, then always use it when you need to calm your dog for whatever reason. No matter what the phrase is, whether it's all good or safe now, if you always say it when soothing them during anxious moments, over time, that phrase becomes a conditioned cue that regulates their stress. In her book, The Other End of the Leash, Patricia McConnell writes about how our dogs are basically masters of associating sounds with emotional outcomes. A single word, if consistently paired with a sense of safety and protection, becomes a powerful thing. Let's say the phrase is, "It's okay, buddy." If your dog is freaking out at the vets, all you have to do is whisper those 3 words and your dog will calm a little, soothing immediately. It costs nothing, it takes almost no time, but if committed to, it becomes a tool that lasts forever. But sometimes it's not what's coming out of your mouth, but what's going into theirs. Every dog eats, but sadly, not every dog gets to eat in peace. Some owners simply plop the food bowl down wherever convenient, because it's easy to think that's no big deal. So long as there is food in the bowl, your dog has access to it. What does it matter? But as published in Applied Animal Behavior Science, researchers have found that predictable routines in feeding don't just improve digestion in dogs, but reduce anxiety as well. As much routine as possible is key. And yes, that includes some of the obvious things, like feeding at roughly the same time every day. But having a designated eating spot, kind of like a dining table for humans, is another. Something you and your dog share is that you're awesome. But something else you share is that you both have what's called a parasympathetic nervous system, which in turn is a piece of your autonomic nervous system. It's the bit that runs automatically without you having to think about it. While the other half of the autonomic nervous system is there to handle the whole fight or flight thing, the parasympathetic half is the rest and digest side, which basically means it kicks in when your dog is safe, and as a result, their heart rate slows, digestion starts, their breathing deepens, and their muscles relax. And there's another cool trick the parasympathetic nervous system plays. When your dog starts chewing in a calm, predictable spot, it activates their vagus nerve, a major part of the rest and digest system. The rhythmic motion of chewing in a peaceful place doesn't just help digestion, it slows the heart rate, deepens breathing, and can even reduce stress hormone levels. In fact, shelter studies have shown that dogs with consistent eating spots gained weight faster, had fewer signs of kennel anxiety, and showed more wagging and tail-thumping joy around mealtimes. It's the difference between scarfing lunch at a busy subway station versus at your favorite kitchen table. Which one would you choose? Your dog is constantly reading you to decide what role you play in their life. These are the signs that reveal when your dog sees you as more than just an owner. And something unexpected happens, a loud noise or a sudden stranger, maybe even another dog walking by. What does your dog do first? Now, some dogs bark, freeze, or rush forward, but others pause and look at their human. Now, when your dog looks to you before deciding how to react, they're using you as their emotional reference point, and this is called social referencing, and it was first studied in human infants. Babies do it when they're unsure. They look to a parent before reacting, and research published in Animal Cognition shows that dogs do the same thing when they see their human as a secure base. So maybe your dog looks back at you when encountering a new object, like a vacuum. Maybe they glance at your face during strange sounds, like a storm. Or perhaps they pause before approaching something, then react after reading your body language. They wait just for a moment to see what you think. And there is a lot of subtle difference between obedience and attachment. And while we obviously approve of our dogs being obedient, what is extra special is having a pooch who is attached. Here's the simplest way to tell them apart. Attachment shows up in unknown territory, obedience shows up in known territory. So a study from the University of Vienna found that those dogs who have formed a relationship with their owner that is as strong as a superhero and as tight as a superhero's outfit, they will defer their own decision-making to said owner, even if other familiar humans are present. Instead, they defer their decision-making to one specific human, even when other familiar people are nearby. Their instinct might say approach or avoid, but before acting, they check with you. And while that can look like obedience, it isn't. Your dog isn't waiting to be told what to do. They're waiting to see what you think, because they trust you. But that kind of trust, though, doesn't only show up in moments of stress or uncertainty. Some dogs show it when nothing is happening at all. When dogs rest, they're not just relaxing. Ethologist Raymond Coppinger, who studied how wolves became domestic dogs, once wrote that dogs are exquisitely sensitive to the movement and positioning of social partners, using spatial orientation as a primary communication signal. So in simple terms, where your dog places their body around you matters. If a dog sees you as more than just an owner, this often shows up during quiet moments. To be clear, I'm not talking about a classic cuddle or curling up on your lap, as adorable as that is. I'm talking about the less intense version of being there with you. Those lazy afternoons, for example, and quiet mornings. Times when you're just chilled out and reading, or trying to read but distracted by TikTok and your dog decides to calmly place themselves by you and just be part of the moment. And to go back to Raymond Coppinger's work, it's not just about where they sit, but how they sit there. Your dog's positioning is communication. They may rest across the room with their head pointed towards you, or lie a few feet away with their spine aligned so they can glance at you easily. And this is subtle, but it signals inclusion in the dog's inner social circle, because dogs do this with other dogs they trust. So, if they do it with you, it means they see you as a fellow dog. Well, sort of. It more means they view you as part of their pack, and that's kind of more special than simply being a boss or a food provider. It means you're equal to them, in the gang. So the thing about the people you choose to keep close to you is that you often keep them around because of the way they make you feel. And for a dog who sees you as more than a human, well, they do the exact same thing. You're not just someone they obey, you're someone they want to be around. And for some dogs, that choice also shows up in what they do when things get hard. So as much as we all might like to protect our dogs and ensure no stress ever comes their way, sadly, life has other plans. And how a dog responds in those moments and what they use to calm themselves again can reveal a very clear picture of their bond with you. Now, think about your dog and when they're confronted with something stressful. Do they pace, whine, run away, or do they move closer to you? We all have ways of dealing with stress. Maybe it's twirling our hair, perhaps it's biting our nails. Maybe your dog's method is to wriggle closer to you because your company itself is calming. Now, the journal Frontiers in Psychology reported that a dog's cortisol levels, the primary stress hormone, drop significantly when they're in the presence of a human that they feel deeply bonded with. One of the researchers working on the study even noted that the simple presence of a loving pet parent can have a calming effect on dogs that is just as powerful as physical affection. How cool is that? Your presence alone can trigger the same biological reaction as a good old-fashioned cuddle. Now, when they're sadly drowning in stress, you can be their lifeboat and literally regulate their nervous system just by being there. And in more extreme cases, this bond goes even further. A deeply bonded dog doesn't just calm down near you, they begin to match your emotional energy. Have you ever felt bouncy and light, only for your emotions to take a sudden downturn because one of your best pals is feeling a little blue and it's sadly contagious? Or perhaps the reverse. Maybe it's you who is not feeling their best, but hanging out with a friend in a good mood lifts you up. We all absorb and match the emotions of those we feel closest to. And this is even more true of your dog if they see you as more than an owner. Now, to be 100% clear, I'm not saying they mimic your behavior. It's your emotional state they get in sync with. If you're calm and quiet, your pooch will be relaxed. But if you're tense or alert, your dog will sense that, and their guard dog mode will activate. Now, one of the best-known dog behavior experts, Patricia McConnell, writes extensively about this in The Other End of the Leash. And according to her, dogs are essentially masters at reading subtle changes in human posture, tone, and emotional state, often responding before the human is consciously aware of the change. They are constantly absorbing, calibrating, and adjusting their own state in response to yours. So, if your dog regularly aligns their emotional state with yours, well, they see you as an awful lot more than a command-dispensing food delivery machine. You are someone who deserves to be vibed with. But this soul syncing doesn't only show up when you're standing right there. Sometimes the clearest side appears when you're not. Now, the big question, teased from the top. If a dog is super bonded with you, surely they freak out and struggle when you're not around. Well, not exactly. In fact, that's why the term is secure attachment. Because if they feel secure in their attachment with you, they know that no matter how long you're gone, you will always come back. So there's no need to emotionally freak out because, well, you always come back. So instead of emotionally spiraling, many of these dogs do something surprising. Dogs with secure attachment often conserve energy during separation. They rest more, they explore calmly, and when you return, their excitement is real but regulated. And studies of canine attachment patterns show a clear difference here. Securely attached dogs tend to display calmer body language during separation and quicker emotional recovery after reunion. In contrast, dogs with insecure attachment often show the opposite: exaggerated distress when you leave and overwhelming clinginess when you return. In other words, a dog who stays calm without you isn't less bonded. They're more confident in the bond. You love your dog and want them in your life, but the problem is communication breakdowns. Sometimes you might do things that seem normal to a human, but to a dog, make them across as dismissive and make them feel unwanted. Now there's a scenario I would tell you to imagine if I wasn't confident you've definitely experienced it for yourself. Your dog approaches with that classic hopeful look. The ears are up, the tail is wagging so fast you fear it could cut reality in half. All the signs are there. This is a fuzzball who is 110% ready for attention. So you're all in. You bend down, you scratch them once, maybe twice. But then your phone buzzes. Suddenly you've been distracted by something and have left your buddy in the lurch. Now research shows dogs are deeply responsive to human gaze and body orientation. In fact, a 2015 study published in Animal Cognition found that our dogs basically use the attentional cues they get from us, such as body posture and direction of gaze, when deciding how to behave. And here's the wild part: dogs will follow your gaze even if it leads to nothing. One experiment showed dogs would stare at an empty wall just because a human looked at it. So, if you've been interacting with your dog and then just turn away without closure, your dog's brain doesn't think, "Oh, they must be busy." Instead, it is closer to, "Why did the affection stop?" Now, this doesn't mean you need to lavish them with 20 minutes of non-stop petting every time they so much as look at you, but, feel free to do that anyway. The key here is that you need to give them a clear signal the petting is over, like cheerfully saying, "All done, buddy," rather than just mysteriously pausing to go do whatever's grabbed your attention. Because what they need is closure. It helps them understand the interaction has ended, rather than leaving them in emotional limbo. Now, 40,000 years ago was a long time. The legendary Lion Man figurine from Germany, one of the oldest known sculptures in existence, was being carved. Neanderthals still existed, and most importantly for the shape of the human race, dog domestication was beginning. All the way back then, dogs were getting the very first lessons that would lead to them becoming our best friends, loyally standing at our side through thick and thin. Now that's before humans built villages. That's before we wrote things down. That's 40,000 years of conditioning that they belong at your side, baked into their DNA. So, imagine how disorienting it is to be denied the ability to do as they've evolved to do and be at your side to protect you. If you sit in the living room and shut a gate, keeping them out, that's 40,000 years of training questioned. When you're sitting in the bathroom and they're not allowed in, they're sat outside feeling cast out from the tribe they've been a part of for so long. It's an instinct that predates Stonehenge, the pyramids, and farming. Now to you, shutting a door on your dog might be a practical decision in the moment. But as John Bradshaw, all-round dog expert, puts it, dogs regard access to their owners as essential to their well-being. And that's why being excluded without explanation can signal to them that their presence is not desired. Not to hammer it home, but it hurts even more than you might think it does, because our dogs don't really have a sense of personal space. I'm sure that might be very clear to some of you, because many a dog loves making that clear. Now, your kitchen is not just a kitchen. It is the hub of pack activity. Your bedroom is not just where you sleep. To your dog, it is sacred den territory. Shutting them out consistently, especially if they can hear or smell you just beyond the barrier, which they can, by the way, dog senses are comic book superhero levels of intense, tells them they are unwelcome. Even if you do need the boundary sometimes, balancing it with moments of open inclusion helps reassure them they are still wanted. Now, in this modern world, many of us spend more time inside than we might have done before, because we might have remote work. This can lead our dogs to assuming that it's always fine to get up in our grill. There's that personal space issue again. Because you're home, so surely that means it's snuggle time. I mean, what else would you have to do in the house? So when your dog comes over and bothers you when you're frantically writing those important emails, it's very easy to, and we've all done this, there is no shame in it, accidentally use a rather dismissive tone to shoo them away. The dog pads over, and without even looking, you mutter, "Not now." The issue is not the words you said, it's the tone. A fascinating bit of research published in Science back in 2016 revealed that a dog actually processes the words we say and the intonation behind them in totally separate parts of the brain. This means that when your tone is clipped, tired, or irritated, they feel it. And it feels like a slap. To a dog, tone is everything. You might think you said, "Later, buddy," but what they heard in your sigh was, "You're a nuisance, be gone." Now, over time, repeated dismissals without positive follow-ups can quietly chip away at their sense of being wanted. You do not need to drop your work every time, but a gentle chin scratch as you do, or a softer tone, can turn the dismissal from rejection into reassurance. Now, sometimes when they pop over to see you, they do not come alone, and on those occasions, you need to make extra sure you don't ignore. Now, I don't mean when they bring their friends over to say hi, though that would be the most adorable thing ever. I mean when they proudly march on over with a toy in their mouth, like it's show and tell and they've got a squeaky chicken they want to show off. There is some slobber-covered toy that you know fully well exists because you paid for it, and they just drop it at your feet with the intense pride of Taylor Swift dropping a new album. Now, every dog has their thing. Some bring squeaky toys, some bring socks, some bring you the world's ugliest stick with the pride of an artist unveiling their masterpiece. Some dogs actually choose objects they know matter to you. So when you ignore these offerings, you miss a powerful moment. Anthrozoologist James Serpell points out that object sharing in dogs can function as a form of affiliative communication. Think of it like a social gift exchange, like taking a bottle of wine to a dinner party. You wouldn't ignore the person who did that at a dinner party you were hosting, would you? No, that would be horrifically rude. and the person whose whine you rejected would feel crushed. And so does your dog when you reject that squeaky chicken toy full of bite marks. And if you do it too many times in a row, it feels like you're rejecting the act of bonding itself. You can't always play fetch with them. There's work to do and texts to reply to and conspiracies to plan. When they approach, you don't have to drop everything to play fetch with the toy they've brought your way. But just like how you don't have to drink the bottle of wine the friend brought you right there and then in that moment, but saying thanks is maybe wise from an etiquette perspective, letting your pup know you appreciate the toy they've brought you, even if you're not going to lob it into the distance for them to chase after right this second, is key. It keeps the emotional bridge between the pair of you nice and intact. Your dog waits all day for your return, and when you walk through the door, it's not just a moment, it's the moment. The tail wags at warp speed. There might be spins, little sneezes, joyful tap dancing paws. They're celebrating you. But life is busy. Sometimes you're carrying groceries, sometimes you're late, sometimes you're distracted, and the greeting you give is shorter, quieter, or more rushed than you meant it to be. You're not rejecting them, but they don't know that. They read your whole vibe, your tone, your body language, even the way you look at them. And if their outpouring of excitement is met with a quick pat and a distracted glance, they might not interpret that as, "I'm tired." They might feel they're not wanted. In one study published in Biology Letters, dogs experienced measurable changes in heart rate when their owners expressed happiness versus irritation. To your dog, the way you mirror their joy becomes a part of how they measure their bond with you. And the good news is, they're not asking for much. Crouch, eye contact, a few kind words in a soft voice is often enough to tell your dog that their joy reached you. Every day, there's one moment your dog is waiting for. Tail still, eyes fixed, and you might walk right past it without even knowing it. Think about the moment you wake up every morning. I don't mean when you jump out of bed or, depending on energy levels, roll and race to the coffee machine. I mean literally the millisecond you stir awake. Depending on whether you rise easily or need a lot of effort, like an inflatable castle, there will be a few seconds to a few minutes between you waking up and you finally stepping out of bed. If your dog is in the room with you, this pause between waking and rising is a big deal to your dog. Renowned canine psychologist Dr. Stanley Coren has a phrase for this that perfectly sums up why it's so magical. The moment of mutual attunement. Basically, your dog senses that you are awake. Their powerfully sensitive ears and noses pick up on the micro changes in your body like secret signals imperceptible to other humans. They feel your shift from sleep to wakefulness through subtle changes in your breathing, heartbeat, and muscle tension. When you sit still in bed, your dog is watching, breathing in sync with you, feeling the security of your presence in stillness. That is why I would argue you should wake up slowly. I mean, obviously, sometimes you will have no choice but to rush out, roll over, and start your day in a blur. That's the truth of life. But if you have the option, always take things slow, or else you are robbing your dog of a crucial grounding moment. A moment that reassures them that their pack leader, that's you, is present, calm, and ready. This brief pause gives your dog a chance to prepare emotionally for the day ahead, setting the tone of connection and quiet confidence. Which is why it's one of the many moments your dog waits for every day. But there are so many others, including, despite the reputation they have, deservedly so, of being loud, attention-seeking goofballs, your dog has a lot more love for quiet moments than you might think. Imagine you've had a long, hard day at work. I'm sure that's not something you need to imagine too hard. You kick off your shoes, give your doggo the hello they've been waiting for since you left 8 hours ago, then make your way to the couch ready to plop down and binge watch until your eyes turn square. But, and I don't want to sound more judgmental than a librarian when someone decides to speak in anything louder than a whisper, you might be sitting on your couch wrong. For your dog, the moment you sit down is a moment of intense anticipation. Because to them, your settling onto the couch signals the start of their most treasured ritual, relaxed companionship. A study published in Anthrozoos found that dogs are exquisitely sensitive to their owner's body language during these transition moments. They actually prepare themselves emotionally and physically to join you, to share your space, your warmth, your quiet presence. If you plop down too quickly, jump up again, or seem distracted, it has the potential to interrupt this emotional rhythm. Your dog may feel unsettled, as if the invitation to closeness has been suddenly withdrawn. That's why, if you can, it is best to savor that moment. It's your dog's cue that it's time to bond without words. No commands, no fuss, just mutual presence. What you'll find as we go through this video is that lots of the things that mean a lot to dogs are the quiet moments. One example of that is they actually love the break between petting sessions as much as the petting. More on that in a bit. But before that, there's another moment that's before something special your dog adores. There is a particular word beginning with W that all dogs adore. Well, that's right, watermelon. No, just kidding. It's walks. Although, having made that joke, many dogs do love watermelon. But a quick bonus fact, be sure to remove the seeds before treating your dog to some. Also, make sure it's chopped up into small, easy-to-digest pieces so there's no choking hazards, and avoid giving them any rind. Right, so walking. Now, to your dog, this is one of those obviously joyful events, a truly special bonding moment between your dog and you. But there's a moment before the walk even begins that you might disregard as just a step on the journey, but to your dog is the delicious appetizer before the main meal. And that's the moment you open the door. Now that instant, your dog catches the scent of fresh air, the sounds of the outside world, and senses the promise of adventure before you even step outside. As Dr. James Serpell points out, dogs experience the environment largely through scent and sound. The moment the door opens is a sensory floodgate, releasing excitement, curiosity, and readiness. If you rush through the door, jostling the leash and keys, your dog misses the emotional build-up. That pause, that subtle inhale of possibility, is like the overture before a symphony and should be cherished. So let them take that in for a second before you charge out there into the great unknown. While we're on the subject of doors, there's another door-based moment your dog holds out for, and it might surprise you because it feels like an insult. I'm talking about when you get up and leave a room, but your dog stays behind. Studies of canine separation behavior, including work from Dr. Nicholas Dodman, show that dogs use scent marking and resting rituals to reassure themselves emotionally. Now, this quiet moment is your dog's way of mentally bookmarking your presence, something of a reset to their emotional security. They're not just processing your absence, they're reinforcing their attachment to your scent, presence, and routine. If you hurry back or create unpredictable patterns, you might disrupt their sense of stability. Now, I mentioned we'd talk about petting, didn't I? It should go without saying that dogs love a good petting session. Although, having said that, they have particular ways they like to be touched and ways they don't. But a recurring motif of this video is how much the little gaps, the pauses between the action, mean just as much to them, if not more sometimes, than the big moments. Dr. Karen Overall, a veterinary behaviorist, explains that these pauses help dogs regulate their arousal levels during interaction, preventing overstimulation or anxiety. Because petting is a flow of affection and sensory input, when you suddenly stop for a second, just a soft, lingering hand on their fur, your dog can process, savor, and respond emotionally. If you rush from one petting spot to another, or continuously rub without a break, you might be overwhelming your dog. When you're giving them an epic petting session, you might think they're loving every second. But the number one moment they might be waiting for is the moment when you stop, if only for a second or two. And our day ends where it began, in bed. It's time for your dog and you to both go to sleep, whether you share a bed or not, so that you can both rest up, then wake up, and start this whole cycle of precious little moments together all over again. And as they are preparing to doze off for the night, there's one final moment they are waiting for. In Attachment to Pets by Dr. Alan Beck and Dr. Aaron Katcher, they explain that physical closeness before sleep helps dogs regulate stress and solidify social bonds. Right before your dog drifts off to sleep, they will often give you a gentle nuzzle or soft touch. This is their way of seeking comfort, reassurance, and connection. It's a subtle social gesture rooted deep in pack instincts. While the temptation can be to rush off to bed yourself, especially if you're exhausted, sharing this moment with your dog and nuzzling them back is huge for them. You rub their ears. You say, "I love you," 100 times a day. But what if the way you show love is the very thing that's pushing them away? There are 7 things owners do, without realizing it, that make their dog feel completely unloved. Number 7. Hugs, kisses, squeezing their fluffy face because it's just too cute to handle. This is how humans show love. But dogs have their own social norms, and many of our affectionate gestures don't translate. In fact, in one study, 81% of dogs showed signs of stress or discomfort, like lip licking or yawning, when being hugged by their owners. That's a big chunk of dogs pretending they're cool with it when they're really not. Canine body language expert Ture Drogas has described how dogs basically tolerate hugging because they can tell we're into it. Sort of like going to watch a band you hate just because your partner loves them. They might be physically present, but they don't truly enjoy it. And face-to-face pressure could be even worse. In dog language, placing your paws or head over another's shoulders is a dominance move, not a hug. So when we wrap our arms around them, they don't think, "Aw, love." They think, "Wait, am I being challenged?" The big problem here is that if you keep doing it because you like it, your dog may come to associate you being physically close to them with feeling discomfort. And this can escalate to them turning their head away or quietly walking off. Some dogs take it a step further. They'll do a deep sigh, then physically reposition themselves with their back to you. That's a cutoff signal, their way of de-escalating emotional tension. If things reach the point of their body stiffening or them unleashing the dreaded whale eye, it's definitely time to reassess how much you use human-style physicality in your love language. One viral study analyzed thousands of dog selfies and found that in over half of them, the dog was showing visible stress signs: whale eye, tight mouth, ears back, because of how close owners leaned in. Number 6. When your dog is scared, it's instinctive to rush in, scoop them up, and shower them with love. Maybe even baby talk until your voice cracks. But here's the thing. That kind of intense comfort, especially if it involves restraining or hovering, can sometimes backfire. Dogs don't always show fear the way we expect. One of the most overlooked signs is freezing. They seem still and quiet, so it's easy to assume they're calm. But in many cases, freezing is the dog version of shutting down. It's not peace, it's panic without motion. If they don't get a chance to decompress on their own terms, like stepping away or taking a moment, the fear doesn't really leave their body. That's why many dogs will do a full-body shake-off after a scary moment. It's like a physical reset, a nervous system reboot. And when that's interrupted, the stress can linger longer than it needs to. Some dogs even establish their own little safe zones for situations like this. Weirdly specific places like the laundry basket, behind the toilet, or curled up in the bathtub. And in those moments, just being allowed to retreat quietly is sometimes the comfort they need most. When dogs aren't given that space, they might start pulling away when they're feeling overwhelmed. Not because they don't love you, but because they're trying to protect their own emotional threshold. And love for them needs to feel safe and calm, not intense or unpredictable. Number 5. If your dog starts furiously barking at a stranger or howling at the thunder, it's natural to feel the need to calm them down. Nobody wants constant barking or ringing in their ears. But here's the thing. Often that's not misbehaving, it's fear. So let's say you're scared of spiders. Now imagine that every time you saw one, someone yelled at you for reacting. Being scared is already hard. Getting punished for it only adds confusion and hurt. And they're paying close attention to you in those moments. Dogs use something called social referencing. They literally watch your face to figure out how to feel. If your body tenses up or you seem upset, they mirror that emotion. But if your presence is calm and steady, it helps them regulate. Even just being near them helps. In one study, shelter dogs who were comforted during storms showed a measurable drop in cortisol, the stress hormone. Your gentle voice, your hand resting near them, that's not just kindness, it's chemistry. Number 4. Dinner should be a special time. Families come together at dinner time not just to get their calories up, but to bond. And when it comes to your dog, nobody's denying that treats can be a fantastic way to build trust, teach skills, or offer comfort in tough moments. But there's a subtle difference between rewarding and relying on rewards. If food starts becoming the only bridge, sit for a treat, cuddle for a treat, come over only if there's a biscuit, turn the TV on for a snack, bark a Shakespeare quote for a sausage, the emotional connection can start to feel more like a transaction. Dogs can start associating closeness with needing to do something, instead of just being. And it turns out that has emotional consequences. Researchers have found that dogs trained only with food were less likely to seek out their person when feeling anxious. It's as if comfort felt conditional, even if that was never the intention. And here's another little wrinkle. In shelter environments, dogs who show connection and responsiveness without needing treats are often adopted more quickly. There's something about that unfiltered presence, that I'm here because I want to be energy, that speaks straight to the heart. So, if you notice that treats have become your main go-to for connection, it might be a great moment to rebalance. Keep the treats, but mix in more free affection, quiet companionship, or a good belly rub, just because. Love lands deeper when it doesn't have strings attached. And while we're talking about rewards, number 3. Dogs want to please us, and that's a good thing. But there's an important subsection to this where things can get problematic, so you're going to want to be careful. They can want to please us so badly that we can accidentally teach them to suppress natural needs. So let's say your dog makes it very clear they'd love to pop outside to relieve themselves. Maybe you can tell them to wait, so they hold it. You praise them for being good. It seems innocuous. A little control is a good thing. But if you repeat this too often, you teach them that expressing needs gets ignored, and it's better to repress how they feel. A study in applied animal behavior science warns that chronic frustration of natural behaviors can lead to emotional suppression and apathy. Over time, your dog may stop signaling altogether. And the problem is, a few too many pet parents to precious pooches mistake this suppression as maturity, when, in truth, it's emotional shutdown. And why the dickens would they love anyone who has made that feeling necessary? Number 2. If you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know how much I talk about the importance of routine to dogs. They love a habit. They want to observe the rhythms and rhymes of your day-to-day, and they want to sync with them. In one study, dogs trained to anticipate a walk at exactly the same time each day began standing by the door up to 30 minutes in advance. Not because of the clock, but because their internal circadian rhythms synced with their owner's routine. That's how deeply they tune into our lives. Except, dogs aren't wired for rigidity. On average, dogs stop to sniff every 6 feet during a walk. Not because they're distracted, but because each sniff contains about 40 times more data than a full page of text. For them, sniffing is the walk. Now, according to ethologist Adam Miklosi, that's no way for a dog to live their life. In lab tests, dogs given a predictable routine with no variation showed fewer tail wags and less interest in toys over time. As signs of emotional flatness, researchers compare to mild canine depression. When a dog stops nudging you for attention or hesitates to bring you toys, it's not always a mood thing. Often it's because they've learned those needs won't be met, similar to how children eventually stop asking questions if they're constantly dismissed. Number 1. If a pet parent makes the innocent mistake of doing a few too many of these things, they may find themselves with a dog that seems well behaved. They're calm, quiet, they don't demand attention anymore. But sometimes that's not peace. In dog psychology, Martin Seligman coined a term for this: learned helplessness. He defines it as when dogs stop attempting to change their environment after repeated experiences of uncontrollable outcomes. Some classic signs that a poor pup may be going down this road include: they follow commands immediately but never offer playful gestures. They sit quietly near you but don't approach for affection. They wait for instructions rather than initiating interactions. Many owners beam proudly. "Wow, my dog is so mellow now. I'm so great." But hold your horses, Karen. Your dog has simply learned that expressing emotions doesn't work with you. If this sounds familiar, it means they need you to start listening again. Thankfully, your dog's love doesn't disappear overnight. Some of the most dangerous times to leave your dog alone are not the obvious ones. Surely if you've scolded your dog, it's right to give them space. What could possibly be so wrong about stepping away when they're rolling around after a bath? Ultimately, it all comes down to navigating the complexities and nuances of dog emotions, which are not the same as our own. Any kind of negative experience is always even harder to swallow if it comes right after a positive one. Hitting the ground hurts more the higher you were before the fall, right? Well, this is also true for your precious pooch. You just came back from a long walk or had an amazing play session. Your dog is panting, tail wagging, eyes bright. You think, perfect, they're tired. Now I can go run errands. So you rush off, leaving them to stew in the good vibes you left them with, right? Sadly, wrong. Because as Dr. Karen Overall, a veterinary behaviorist, notes, dogs experience a post-interaction emotional high that needs time to settle before they feel secure. Leaving right after an intense bonding session can create what's called a contrast anxiety effect. 1 second you are their entire world, the next you're gone. This sharp drop from high engagement to isolation can amplify separation anxiety, especially in dogs predisposed to attachment-related issues. For this reason, Dr. Overall recommends giving them a 15 to 30-minute window of calm decompression time before you bolt. Nice and simple. Just some quiet time, you and them in the same room, gently petting or simply sitting nearby to let their nervous system reset. To be honest, you'd probably benefit from that moment to chill before racing off to do your errands anyway. A breather now and then is an important thing. Is there something that means the world to you, but isn't that big of a deal to your romantic partner or friends, but they do it with you anyway because they know it's huge to you? That is grooming for dogs. To most owners, it's a standard routine, just something they have to do because they chose to have a fluffy flatmate. But to a dog, it is an intense transformation comparable to Eliza Doolittle from My Fair Lady. Their fur feels different, their smell changes dramatically, even their skin sensations shift. Research published in Applied Animal Behavior Science found that scent and tactile familiarity are primary sources of comfort for dogs. We all know how important a dog's sense of smell is to them in understanding the world. So for them, the masking of their scent and your scent that happens during the bathing process is as disorienting as Google Maps crashing mid-hike. Their ability to comprehend what things are and where they are may now be askew. You might see them do the classic post-bath zoomies. That's not just joy. It is partly a stress release behavior that Dr. Nicholas Dodman calls a displacement activity. According to him, the reason so many dogs shake, roll, or sprint after bathing is to restore typical scent and comfort levels. They're rebooting Google Maps. If you leave right after this, they are left in a confusing state, all alone with no map app. If possible, the best thing to do is to stay with them until they've fully calmed, rubbed against furniture, or shown signs of resettling into their everyday body language. Now, it wouldn't be a smelly belly video without some advice from our old pal Dr. John Bradshaw, would it? There is a pretty big misconception amongst a lot of pet parents about precious pooches that leaving right after a scolding teaches that dog a lesson. but Dr. Bradshaw explains that dogs don't actually link delayed consequences to past actions the way humans do. They are simply too in the emotional moment. If you leave after scolding, what they experience is not, "I deserved that." It is, "My person is upset and now gone. I am unsafe." This is one of the more serious things on the list, because if this happens too often, it can erode the trust between your dog and you. A dog left alone in that confused, vulnerable state may show stress signals like excessive licking, pacing, or whining. Stay close, even if you need to give them space physically. Re-establish calm and security before leaving. Dogs can read. Okay, not books, but rooms. If you just got a promotion, had a party, or returned home excited about some huge personal news, you are flooding that room with an energy that your dog picks up on and loves. Research by Dr. Mia Maria Kujala in Animal Cognition showed dogs synchronize their emotional state with human moods through both vocal and chemical cues. When you are euphoric, they get emotionally charged too. However, therein lies a big old issue. If you suddenly leave after filling the room with high-energy vibes, the life and soul of the party is gone, and your poor pup can crash emotionally. Their brain expects more social interaction, not sudden isolation. Think of it as leaving a child at a party right after giving them a giant sugar rush. Suppose you find yourself aware that this is something that is happening. If you can, try to take a moment to spend just a little extra calm bonding time after sharing big emotions. Transition your dog back to neutral energy before heading out. Ever felt like your dog has a psychic nose and seems to have smelled that you're sick? Sometimes even before you have noticed. If dogs can pick up on your good vibes, they can also pick up on your bad vibes. And according to the canine cognition researcher, Dr. Monique Udell, our pups will even adjust their behavior based on the hints about our health we are giving off in our body language and facial expressions, consciously or not. If you've been sick or unusually quiet for days, your dog has been monitoring you closely. This shifts them into a protective and nurturing mindset. They are worried about you, hence why when you're sick, your dog seems to spend so much more time with you. The problem comes when, having shaken off the flu or whatever you may be struggling with, you suddenly bounce back up and leave again. You're out the door, back to errands or work. But to your dog, the fragile human they were watching over has vanished without warning. Even if the scent of illness is fading, their emotional memory of the past few days doesn't reset instantly. Dogs rely on steady patterns. A sudden shift from sick and still to gone and silent can be deeply confusing, even distressing. Where possible, in the closing days of sickness, take a moment to try and make sure your precious pooch understands you are no longer under the weather. Move around more, use a cheerful voice, step outside for a moment, then return. These little cues help your dog understand that things are improving, and that it's okay to relax if you randomly pop out to the shops for the first time in a week. Who are you, really? If you were to define yourself, you'd base it on things like your appearance, personality traits, and interests. But your dog doesn't care if you are a 5'2" happy-go-lucky fan of ballet. They define your identity via a different sense entirely. The smell you put out there in the world. To them, your unique musk is who you are. Interfering with that smell is as jarring to them as if your friend who has had long hair for 50 years suddenly shaved it, or if your vegan mate started eating 27 cheeseburgers a day. Studies on scent recognition, including one published in Behavioral Processes by Dr. Julianne Kaminski, confirm that dogs use scent as a primary social identifier, even more so than sight. A new lotion, laundry detergent, or perfume can literally confuse them into feeling like you are someone else. If you walk out the door immediately after dramatically altering your scent, your dog might feel unsettled, almost as if you are not fully you. Give them time to sniff you, cuddle, and re-anchor to your new scent before leaving. Let them know you are still you before you bounce. From zoomies to running in circles to barking at what must be a ghost because there is nothing there, our dogs often have what seem to be random emotional outbursts. It's common for many pet parents to write these off as simply burning off energy, and for many, that seems like the perfect time to duck out. They've released all their energy and are calm now, right? So all is well. Unfortunately, yet again, the experts have arrived to ruin our assumptions. According to Dr. Mark Beckhoff, these sudden bursts often serve as emotional resets, especially after stress. Your presence during and after these outbursts reassures them that they are safe. Leaving immediately can make them feel as though they have been abandoned in a state of emotional vulnerability. Give them a calm wind down. Let them know that after big feelings, you are still their safe place. Worried your dog may feel alone, even when they're not? Check out this next video.